Good evening. I don't have a gavel. Good evening. Do we have a mic? Is this working pretty good? Okay. Good evening. All right. Nice to see everybody. I think maybe the rain's kind of slipping us around us. It's raining everywhere and it all flow into the lake. To help us out here, we have a drought situation. So any bit of rain is good. So you can't hear? All right. So let's get, I have a microphone. I understand. Hold on. We're not doing anything yet. We're going to get this speaker. Can we angle that speaker that way? All right. Okay. So this is actually this is a good test for us. So we're going to have to use our school teacher voices. So speak loud, don't mumble. We have a lot of neighbors and friends here, and we want everybody to hear questions and what you have to say. So I think they're going to move that. Are you going to move it all the way around? I'll let them get organized before we start. So just hang loose for a quick second. Hey, Lori, is that good? Okay, so I'm going to test this thing for audio purposes. Can you hear me? All right, I got thumbs up on the far end of the newly named Oak Room. In the Oak Room there, people can hear. It looks like everybody else can. So it's going to be really important for those who ask questions so that individuals can hear and also for those of you who are here, we have some folks on Zoom. Let me just get us started. Good evening. My name is Brian Nickel. I serve as the Orange County Supervisor for District 5, which encompasses most of Lake of the Woods. I want to welcome everyone here and on Zoom to this Rapidan Service Authority Town Hall meeting here at the Lake of the Woods Association Clubhouse. I want to thank GM Rodenberg, Assistant GM Broder, Chaz Kilby, who runs our clubhouse operation, Lori, Susan, and Travis from Lake of the Woods staff, and all those who've assisted in scheduling and setting up Zoom for tonight's town hall meeting. I am pleased to be joined this evening by Orange County Supervisor for District 4, Crystal Hale. It's great to have Crystal here. We are also joined by 2 of the 3 Orange County members of the RSA board. That is Mark Johnson and Ted Voorhees. I know they're in the audience. Raise your hand, Mark and Ted. Good to see you. Mark also serves as the chairman of the RSA board, and he also serves as the chairman of the Orange County Board of Supervisors. Mark is the supervisor for District 1, and then Ted also serves, in addition to his role on the RSA board, as the Orange County administrator. We're also joined on my left here by RSA General Manager Tim Clemens and a few of his select staff, and that would be David Gerald and Joe Gonzalez. Joe is assigned in particular as the leader on the ground here in Lake of the Woods, and it's great to have both of you here along with Tim. I also want to recognize, and I think I've seen everybody, but maybe not, but members of our Lake of the Woods Association Board, and that'd be President Rick Rappaport. And I think Rick's here. Thank you, Rick. I saw also Leif Henneke. Great to have you here. Bill Kay. Hi, Bill. Frank DePasquale. And who I did not see, but if they're here, they came in just a bit ago, Vasa Olson and Walt Dirks. Are you here, Vasa or Walt? They may be on Zoom, so I'm not sure where they are, but if they are, I want to thank them for joining as well. So pursuant to the recent raw sewage overflows into the Lake of the Woods main lake, as well as some various issues concerning drinking water in low homes, leaking water pipes, I've heard from many of you around the community asking questions and expressing concerns regarding the Rapidan Service Authority's sewer and water operations in Lake of the Woods. The purpose, and this is really important, the purpose of this RSA Town Hall meeting is to listen to and address questions from you, as well as to educate and provide information regarding RSA's systems, operations, future plans, and capital programs. Lake of the Woods has had a significant number of new residents who have moved into the community in recent years. Many are unaware of even what the system is, and many are unaware of RSA operations and responsibilities. To begin, I will call on Supervisor Hale for any comments she would like to make to start the meeting, and then we'll ask GM Clemens for his comments. We will then begin the question and answer period for the meeting in a town hall style format. So once they make their remarks, I'll tell you how we're going to operate this going forward. Again, I'm thrilled that we have such a great showing from the community. It shows absolutely not only a deep level of concern, but how thoughtful this community is in coming out to work for solutions that make our community better. So thank you all for being here. And with that, I'll hand it over to my colleague, Crystal Hale, for any comments. Supervisor Hale.
Thank you, Supervisor Nickel. I'm just so glad to be here this evening. In case you don't recognize my face, I am the supervisor for the remaining part of LOW that does not fall under Supervisor Nickel's purview. So I sometimes remind him Lake of the Woods is mine too. So I'm here to be attentive and listen to your questions and concerns. I'm also here to learn. I appreciate this opportunity. Wow, what a great showing of interest and turnout by this community, and that's very impressive. And I would also like to thank Mr. Clemens and his staff for being here. In my short tenure so far as supervisor, I have found Mr. Clemens to be extremely responsive and helpful in answering questions and concerns. I think it also helps us to understand sort of the history of the system and where it originated, how it originated, and how we got to some of the places we are now. So that might be something we can learn about. But I'm going to be learning with you. And I'm going to be asking questions too. I'm going to leave this opportunity to you all to ask the questions, but believe me, I have questions too. So this will help me to better understand what's going on as well and how I can better serve you in this community alongside Mr. Clemens and his staff and Supervisor Nickel. So thank you all for being here, and I'm excited to move on into the meeting.
Just like Supervisor Hale, I'm sure I will learn a lot this evening also. I do want to thank all of you for coming out. Supervisor Nickel welcomed us and invited us to come down here and have this with you. We are glad to do that. I'm sure that we will try to answer all of your questions. I don't know that we can. If we cannot, then we will get back with you. I will not answer all of them. These gentlemen to the left, my left, will have to help me with some of them because they may be more knowledgeable than I am on some of it. Just briefly, RSA. RSA as an organization was chartered in 1969. So we've been around for a few years. Collectively, our staff, we have over 500 years of experience amongst our staff. Some of our people have been with us 40 years or more. I've been in this business 46 years. So we think we have people that know what they're doing. We're not perfect, and we certainly can make a mistake. But we do want to do our best to serve you. So that is our goal. We don't always make everybody happy. We do know that. I heard from a lot of people last week for various issues. But this system down here was also started around 1969, is my understanding, by the developer. It was not RSA. They chose to put in a vacuum sewage system, which is very unique. What you have here is a very unique system. It's not done everywhere. They chose to do that for a variety of reasons, but RSA was not involved until the late 80s. We got involved around 1987 or 88. And from that point forward, we've had responsibility for water and sewer service here. At the time we took over, and I was not with RSA at that point, I've been the general manager for the last 7 years. I've been with RSA for 24 years. At the time we took over, your water supply was all wells, high in iron, high in manganese. And we still see the results of that today, sometimes when we get dirty water calls because something is sloughed off in a pipe. That's a result of those years of well water. RSA built a water treatment plant in the late 90s. And so that's what serves you today. All the wells were taken offline. You're now served by a water treatment plant located in Wilderness Shores. And the sewage treatment plant that serves your neighborhood is also at the end of Wilderness Shores. And it replaced what was in serious problems with the DEQ back when RSA took over, the old Flat Run sewage plant. I don't know anything about it other than what I've read, but it was not good. So that was all replaced. So what we have today is newer, and we try to keep it in good shape. We've just finished an expansion at our water plant, which will help us. And so that's briefly it in a nutshell. I am not going to waste a lot of your time listening to me talk because I think most of you came here to ask questions. And so at this point, I will turn it back over to Supervisor Nickel, and we can proceed with trying to answer your questions.
Thank you, Supervisor Hale and GM Clemens. I appreciate that. I'm told that we have approximately 30 people on Zoom. So at some point, we'll give the Zoom individuals a chance to ask a question. So let me lay out how we're going to operate. In terms of the Q&A period, we have a lot of people here and a lot on Zoom. So we will start by taking questions here in the room. At some point, maybe after 10 or so people, we'll probably switch over and take some questions from Zoom. So if you are on Zoom and you want to ask a question, I would ask that you raise your hand on the Zoom app. So just put your hand up. We'll get to you, and understand that we'll go through a series of questions here and then move on. So a couple things. Please be respectful to all attending and mindful that we have a limited amount of time. We want to get to everyone that we can who has a question. I know many of you, because you've talked to me about it, and that's the reason I invited RSA here, have strong opinions and thoughts and positions and questions about the matters at hand, and that's important. Let's all do our best to show that we can have a robust and respectful discussion while giving you a voice to express your opinion where you have one and bring pertinent questions where it's important. And let's allow our invited guests from RSA who serve us, just as the county serves you, to have an opportunity to answer your questions. It's going to be really important with a room this size and this many people that we hear those questions and not have a lot of side chatter. It's hard to do. I love side chatter. It's, you want to talk to your spouse or significant other, but let's try to keep that to a minimum where we can. And I would make one request, and that is that you not ask about or bring a personal situation, truly something that's an ongoing issue at your home here, and try to address it here. We've got staff here. We will address that. So everyone who has something you want to talk specifically about, we want that to go to someone. If it's in a general sense, we want to address it. But we simply don't have a time to go through everybody here and have a personal situation addressed in front of everybody. And so I would just ask that you allow RSA to investigate that and get back to you. As you might imagine, will serve as moderator, and I'm going to do my level best to keep things moving. So in that vein, if you have a question, we're going to ask you to come up to the podium to pose the question. And what I'd like you to do without, if you can, not blocking too much of the way there, is if you're the first one up is the first one up, but number 2, 3, 4, and so on, if we could have 4 or 5 line up at the carpet, right at the break of the room there, headed back that way, so that we don't have people we wait 5 minutes for someone to get up here. I want to be able to get to as many people as possible, have you positioned so you can come up to the podium. I think that's how that is how we're going to operate. It's not how I think we're going to operate. That's how we're going to operate. And I'm grateful for your attention and your time to bring these important issues to RSA. I am really encouraged with the people in this community who care so deeply about everything about it. And so thank you for being here at the onset. We'll answer the questions where we can get an answer, and where we need to get back to you, we're going to get back to you. And that's our job. So with that, do I have the first person who would like to come up? Lynn, you're right in front of me. I saw you right here. So Lynn's going to go first, and then everybody next can go over here. I'll show you where to line up and get in line, and you'll be next.
Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Okay. I actually have kind of 3 questions, so I'll try and squeeze them into a short period. RSA, where is RSA in terms of the permitted capacity for total gallons, as well as nitrogen and phosphorus? Given that new and replacement homes are being built in Lake of the Woods are much larger, 2-bedroom houses are turning into 6-bedroom houses. What plans are there to accommodate this growth and fall in line with the Virginia pollutant discharge, domestic sewage discharge, and the Chesapeake Bay watershed? That's my first question. My second one is, what is RSA, given the leaks that we've had 3 in 10 months, August 21st, 2023 was the 1,000 gallons. Lake of the Woods residents were alerted by our HOA 24 hours after this event. Boaters and bathers were at risk for exposure to E. coli all day Sunday. I think that was too long to alert us. So the question is, what is RSA doing proactively to lessen the leak events as opposed to reactively, which seems to be the way the RSA does things? My fourth one is, I sent an email to Lee Frame, our previous Orange County supervisor, who is also, by the way, on the board of RSA. And I asked them about plans to replace, what are the plans for Lake of the Woods sewer system? And he wrote back, quote, "There are no plans to replace the Lake of the Woods sewage collection." And he went on to say how much that would cost us, millions and millions. And that replacing the entire sewage collection system would be prohibitively expensive and require 40 to 50 more pumps stations throughout Lake of the Woods. Now, according to RSA's latest annual report, we currently have 13. Do the math. So what are your plans for that? Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll try to address each of your questions quickly. As far as the sewage plant goes, it is running at less than half capacity today. It's a 2 million gallon a day plant running at about between 800 and 900,000 gallons a day. So it's fine. As far as our total nutrient limits, our total nitrogen, total phosphorus, our limits are 3 and 0.3 annual limit. And right now we're running at 2.25 and 0.26. So we're okay there. We have been ever since we expanded that plant back in the mid 2000s. And we did expand it as it is a nutrient removal plant that was built to replace what was there at the time. As far as your comment or question about what is RSA doing proactively, what we're doing is we spend a minimum of $350,000 a year on vacuum sewer system upgrades, and we have been since 2009. Since 2009, we've spent over $5.4 million on vacuum sewer upgrades. We have replaced almost 30,000 feet of sewer line since 2009. We've upgraded pump stations. We've added generators at pump stations that didn't have them before. And that's just some of the things we've done. Currently, we have a study underway for those 13 pump stations that was mentioned. When you spoke to Mr. Frame, what he would have been referring to, again, this is a vacuum sewage system. Mr. Frame was referring to the fact that if it were converted at some point in time to what is called conventional, so gravity sewer, that sort of thing, because of the topography in this area, it would take maybe 40 pump stations because they're all going to flow to a manhole, to a pump station. They're going to get pumped up, picked up, lifted, sent to the next one, on and on. That's how that works. That's what he was referring to. They did look at that back in the mid 2000s. The cost back then was $60 or $70 million to do that. Move that money forward today, that same cost is 120 or 130 million dollars. And, you know, Mr. Frame at the time, I knew him. I was not working directly with him. Our previous general manager was, but I think they just felt, even back in the mid 2000s, that was just too much money to expect this community, because it would only be this community paying for it. That's what you have to understand. It only serves this community. So if it gets replaced, or if it gets significantly upgraded more than what we're doing today on 350,000, and I would like to do more than that. There was a charge put on your bill when this started of $7. It's factored into your rate. It's never gone up since 2009. So that $7 in today's money would be over $10. $350,000 in 2009 is over $500,000 today. We're not doing that because we still only have a $7 charge on your bill. So we do a minimum of $350,000 a year. We've already done $385,000 this year so far, but that is what we're doing proactively. This system, unfortunately, it's a vacuum system. There will be leaks at times. I would be lying to you, and I will not do that to tell you that there will never be a leak. That would be, no, we won't do that. We won't tell you that. It can happen. Pieces of equipment fail, pipelines fail. Some of these pipes have been in the ground since 1969, 1970. Like I say, we have replaced since 2009, close to 30,000 feet of it, but that's not all of it. And a lot of it runs around the lake itself. There are vacuum lines that run completely around this lake. There are homes completely around this lake. All of them have a vacuum tank. Those tanks are mechanical. They can fail at some point in time. Those lines can rupture at some point in time. Somebody can cut them. We've had that happen. We've had contractors cut through them. So those are all things that can happen in this system. I'm not sure if I answered all your questions. If not, certainly welcome to discuss it more later.
Hi, I'm Sheila Carney, and I've just got kind of a simple question. What do you see as the major concerns with our system? And what are RSA's plans to address those? And then second question or third question would be, you mentioned that there had been replaced 30,000 feet of line. Out of how many? What's the total?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know, Joe, if you would either.
Just to get a sense of
we've had-
percentage of how
I'd-
much has been replaced.
It's 3 or 4 times that at least.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's,
There is a lot of vacuum sewer line run through this community. What we see as one of the biggest things is what we're doing now. We're trying to upgrade the system. We continue to try to upgrade the system. We spend more time and energy and effort inside of Lake of the Woods than outside of Lake of the Woods. Ms. Hale has constituents inside and outside. Her outside constituents don't take much of our time. Her inside constituents do. It's just a lot more work in here. You know, a conventional gravity sewer system, such as over in Wilderness Shores, we spend very, very little time on. Joe has how many men? Well, men and ladies
Yeah.
that are in here full time, do nothing but vacuum sewer.
5.
5, that's all they do is vacuum sewer. I mean, that is all they do every day. I don't have that kind of people anywhere else except inside of Lake of the Woods. It is a labor intensive system. I would love to never have a leak. You would love to never have a leak. We would love to never hear that you had a leak, believe me, because we do hear about it when it happens. I did not answer one of your questions, ma'am, and that's on our response time. We do respond quicker than 24 hours. Since that time, that leak back then, we have worked with Mr. Rodenberg, Mr. Nickel, and some others. We've developed a policy that we're trying to notify quicker. We've not said we will do it within X minutes or X hours, but we have committed to LOWA that we would do it as quickly as possible. We have to notify DEQ within 24 hours. We will not wait that long to notify Mr. Rodenberg and his staff. We have come up with a written procedure. Joe handles most of it because he and his guys are the ones here, contacting your chief of security. And so it goes much quicker that way. And that's what we're doing in that effort. So I don't know, ma'am, if I answered your question fully. You know, our biggest thing is to keep upgrading this system. Like I said, we have a study going right now on 13 pump stations. We're waiting to hear back on that later this summer. And they're evaluating what we would need to do on upgrading all those pump stations. Okay, if it's a problem at the pump station itself, generally there's an alarm. If it's at a home, it's going to generally be the homeowner that calls us. Joe has got right now, he's working with a company. We're looking at being able to install, this is new, sensors throughout the community that would pick up a loss of vacuum or a drop in the vacuum. That would at least tell us there's a problem in an area. May not tell us what home, but it would let us know quicker there's a problem in an area. We're just now getting to experiment with that. We'll see how successful it is and how expensive it is, because it won't be cheap. Nothing in my industry is cheap. Probably nothing in any industry is cheap anymore. McDonald's is not cheap. So, you know, it just doesn't work that way. But those are the things we're doing, and we'll continue to do. You know, our goal is to, as Mr. Nichols said, our goal, we serve you. You know, we're a service organization. We don't like you upset. Doesn't bode well when my board members get phone calls from you and it all just runs downhill like sewage. So, you know, ends up in Joe's lap at that point. But that's our goal. Our goal is to serve you as best we can. We are not perfect, as I've said before, but we will continue to try.
My name is Richard Kurz. Actually, 2 things. Recently, I had there was a leak in a pipe in my street, and I called the association maintenance department, and I got a phone message saying there is no one to take your call at this time. Thank you for calling. Goodbye. No message capability. That's not your problem. That's the lake's problem, but you need to know that. Something's going on. There was no, you can call another number. So I called RSA, but it was a Saturday. I left a message. By Tuesday, the leak was still there. I happened to run across a guy a maintenance guy cutting the lawn and I told him about it and he got somebody there, but there needs to be a better response from a couple of,
Okay, you,
I believe it was just water.
and
Wasn't
did
sewer.
did you contact our after-hour service?
Yes, and I left a message. The lady answered the phone, a
Okay.
lady answered the phone, I left a
Well-
message and
If you get with us tomorrow and let us know kind of when, we'll run that down. We'll at least find out what happened.
well, it finally got repaired because I found somebody to go and call the right.
Somebody
people.
should have responded that weekend. We have people on call 24 hours a day,
Okay.
7 days a week.
I have a concern about the data center going in about 10 miles from here. I've read an article in, I believe it was the Isaac Walton League magazine, that data centers use an incredible amount of water. Is our system going to be taxed by that? Do you have, are you aware of the issue?
I've been hearing about data centers for a number of years. I've been hearing about neighborhoods for a number of years. So, you know, until they actually become a reality or they get something before the Orange County Board of Supervisors, it gets approved.
They're
That's,
building it now.
well, that may
It's-
be Culpeper then.
Okay,
It-
well, I'm just wondering if
Well,
it's
if
going to
you-
affect
if it's
us.
10 miles down the
Does it
road-
affect us?
It's 10 miles down the road, it's not us.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, Mr. Kurz. I am too. So, Mr. Kurz, I do want to, I thank you for that. That data center on Route 3 is in Culpeper County. So that's not served by RSA. In addition, with respect to the leak, or excuse, two things. One, with respect to answering the phone, that's not my responsibility. That is the Lake of the Woods Association. So I appreciate if you'd let them know. It's important to hear that. I can also tell you, I got a call over the weekend about a water leak. It was undetermined where that water leak was. I called the RSA hotline. I received someone who answered the phone, and she took all the information down. I shared what the alleged situation was. I got a call back in about a half hour from the technician who was on site, who had been there and knew about that water leak. So I just want you to know, and everybody here, I think it is worth knowing, it is important that if you see a water or a sewer leak, you call RSA. You can call our security as well, and security will go check it out. But the individuals who will assign someone to go out are RSA. And it's really important to do that. I had that experience over the weekend because a constituent contacted me, and I got a call back immediately from RSA. I will also, so I appreciate your question. And in addition, I do want to say one thing about the notification protocols where if we have sewage that goes into our lakes, either one of our lakes, or a live stream that goes into our lakes. We worked together with Lois staff and GM Rodenberg, GM Clemens, Director Kay, who was in those meetings. Not fun meetings to have, frankly, because I don't like sewage in our lakes at all. And I believe that we ought to have immediate notification as quickly as possible. I respect that, but I respect it if we have a target, and I've made my position clear on that. What I can tell you, the 3 leaks that have occurred this year, much smaller than the one that occurred last year. And I will tell you that the response time has been absolutely 100% improved. I appreciate it. I know they're working hard. So my job is to keep them responding as fast as possible. I mentioned LOA board members. Is Jim Zavril here? I didn't see him either, so I wanted to make sure. I tried to list everybody who was here, but I didn't see him. So if he was here, he may be on Zoom as well. So thank you for the response. It's our responsibility to hold those who are in charge of responding accountable. And that's what we all have to do. So, but I can tell you it's improved. That's over since March, if you will. So I'm not ready to declare victory on that front. We're going to keep monitoring and we're going to keep being proactive about it. But thank you for that question, Mr. Kurz. Appreciate it. Betty?
Hi, my name is Betty McGinn, and Mr. Clemens, you heard from me back in June. If you remember my name. And you responded to me in a very comprehensive, transparent, and thorough way about the system, the history back in 2004 with the study that was done, the engineering study, about the stations that needed to be improved and about the monstrous investment that needed to be made by the Lake of the Woods community if we were to choose option one, which is to do a modern vacuum system, or option two, new system like I guess Wilderness has.
Conventional, what
Conventional,
we would call
conventional.
conventional.
I was a little startled by the numbers because they ran into I think when the number you gave me for the conventional was 113 million. And the new modern system was like 85 million, something like that. And that it would be borne by the Lake of the Woods community. What would that mean for us?
Well, you figure out how many homes you have in here and divide.
Well, that I know. That I can, that I can
So
figure,
it's,
that I can figure out.
it would be very expensive for each home. You know,
But it would
very
be, would it
expensive.
be, if you keep upgrading the stations, which is the other thing that it said, that the study
Right.
said, and at some point, but it also, I wanted to read, it said, the review of the engineer said, the review of the vacuum pump stations indicated from operational data that the Lake of the Woods vacuum pump stations were operating near maximum practical vacuum levels. And that was in 2004. And so you've been upgrading those. But
We
what
have.
happens if we get to the point where the upgrades get
Well,
to-
that is why we have a study going right now to look at those existing 13 stations to see moving forward what would be recommended as far as new pumps, new tanks, new pipes, possibly even new buildings, all new electrical. You know, we're having them look at everything.
And would that also be borne by Lake of the Woods community?
Well, it's going to be factored into the rate. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, that's my question on the sewage part of it. The water part of it. Every time I get one of your letters, I have to be honest, it just freaks me out. You know, what do I do? You know, is the water safe? I know we're within just a little bit over the range, but what does that mean to me? What does that mean to me when
Well-
I take a shower, cook, drink the water? And will you be able to, as a company, provide us with some information about what water filtration systems that would be appropriate to solve this problem on an individualized homeowner's purchase, for example? Because I put it out on Facebook and I got a lot of responses from a lot of different people about what they've done, but I don't know if those systems solve the problem that we're dealing with. Would you be a resource for that?
We hesitate to recommend certain companies
Not
because,
companies, but
because if somebody
systems.
is dissatisfied with the device or the company, then we're to blame. And so we might be able to be a resource there. I do not know. We've not actually looked into that. I would like to say that we have sent out two disinfection byproduct letters the last 2 quarters. The one line that has exceeded the limit is not inside a Lake of the Woods. Okay, just so you know that. The water line.
Right.
Yeah, the water line. We do sample
So the
in the lake.
letters that you're sending don't affect,
We have to send those letters to every customer we have.
but
on
they
this-
don't necessarily affect every customer.
They don't affect every customer
Can you explain how that's
because
possible?
the line we're dealing with right now is a large, long line with low use that feeds down to the Germanna College. That is the line that we've had trouble with the last 2 quarters. Our lines inside of Lake of the Woods, our numbers have been acceptable. They've been lower than the limits. So
Oh.
that,
Okay, well, that's good.
just,
Just to be clear, you test in 4 places, correct?
we test in 4 places down here.
Test in 4 places. The last 2 times the test came back, down near Germanna Community College is where the higher level was detected, which triggers a Department of Environmental Quality notification to everyone who uses the system. So And that's been consistent, so.
Yes.
You have not had in Lake of the Woods a high, you did not exceed the limit in Lake of the Woods when you tested.
Not these last 2 quarters. Now, we have previously, but not these last 2 quarters. So,
Okay, in terms of being a resource, I'm not asking you to point me to any one company, but just what to look for. You know, if, given the fact that anywhere that there's an alert that is appropriate and it goes over the range within which it should stay, as a homeowner, I'd like to know what I'm supposed to be looking for.
okay,
Okay,
we can look into that.
okay.
I
thank you.
don't have an answer for you tonight for that, but we will look into it.
One thing I'll mention,
Yeah, please.
on the last letter, and I think the letter before that we sent out, in the last little bit of that letter is a frequently asked questions section. And we indicated that if you were looking for a filtration system or a filter generally that would take out these haloacetic acids, there's an NSF certification that covers that. And that is on the last
Should have
letter
been.
that we sent out.
Should have been in there.
We indicate NSF 42 or 53. Those are the certifications that basically guarantee that the filter would remove chlorine, the haloacetic acids, particulate matter, sediment, anything like that. So that is the recommendation we could make to kind of steer you in the right direction if you're looking for some kind of filter system. Sure, it's NSF 42 and 53.
Hi, Julie Neff. I understand that you guys just recently had a company come in and replace a lot of the, well, not, so, a lot of the sewage lines. You went from 6-inch to 8-inch. And I know that after the installation of those pipes, there were a lot of leaks along there. Has anybody gone back to check on those leaks? To see
Sure.
if they're still leaking? Because I have an area behind my house that has not dried out. I've had several leaks from the tanks go down into the drainage ditch and have had to have RSA come out and
What
fix it.
what is your address, ma'am? Just,
121 Green Street.
never mind,
Yep.
Joe knows.
I know.
And that is why Joe is down here, not me. Okay?
I've
That's
been
why.
several times. But I mean, there's puddles of water back there. That ground has not dried up whatsoever. So are you checking back to see if these pipes that they installed are
So
leaking
we are
still?
still working on that section. We did have a couple issues with the installation along that side, especially on your side, and we fixed a lot of them. Everything on that side's been dug up, re-inspected and repaired. And we haven't been having to bring out the pump truck and pump on Green Street, so we're moving in the right direction. Just other sections have been taking our time. We've been getting a lot of calls in a different area for kind of the same issue, vacuum leaks. Whenever you have an area getting a lot of overflows, you gotta focus there. So
Right.
I think the water that you're seeing is just coming up following the old pipes that are abandoned in the ground. Okay, there have been overflows there. I know that.
Yeah. Well, I
But
know
as
the
for the-
area I'm talking about, I know that they had to redig up
Yeah,
and work on. And that whole area there is still wet and soggy with puddles
So,
of water. that
Yeah,
are
if you would,
sitting
if you
there.
would get with us, we can specifically have someone try to come out and look at that and address that for you.
Appreciate it, because my concern is it drains down into a drainage easement.
Sure, understood.
My name is Bill Lukacik. First of all, I'd like to give thanks that we have RSA here. I'm taking a different tact. Everybody's read about what happened at Lake Anna this year. I'm very elated that we do not have a situation like Lake Anna has. And these guys have protected us from a situation like Lake Anna. There were children in hospitals because of Lake Anna this year. So. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask a question and then give it an answer immediately, because the questions are going to get exceedingly harder as we go. All my questions have to do with water source, our municipal water source. The first question is, I think, really easy. I use a website called waterdata.usg.gov to get the flow rate of the Rapidan River, and anybody that needs help finding it, I can help it. It's right on the favorites on my phone. I track it. Right now, the gauge is reading 39 cubic feet per second.
Mhm.
Last time we had a water emergency, it was hitting 24 cubic feet per second. So, but the problem is there's another gauge on Route 3, and I don't know who runs that gauge on Route 3 crossing Rapidan. Maybe you guys do. We don't, the citizens can't get a hold of that data coming off that gauge. So the question is, what Rapidan River water gauge that shows river flow rate do you use, and can citizens access that river gauge?
We use the Culpeper gauge and it's on the USGS site.
All right, the 522 gauge, that the Rapidan crosses at 522.
That's the Culpeper.
Okay.
That's where the
All right.
Culpeper gauge is, right? Yeah.
We're down.
That's what we use.
It's dropping 39 cubic feet per second today. All right, second question should be easier. The Virginia DEQ recently denied your request to increase the Rapidan River raw water intake permit. What's the reasons why you think that they denied your request to increase the rate?
Do you want to address this since you dealt with DEQ? Or do you want me to? Or do you want me to?
I wouldn't phrase it quite as a denial, more of we decided to change our
We withdrew.
approach.
We withdrew our request.
They would have granted the higher request. It just would have changed how they calculate how much we can pull out on a daily basis. So their new approach to withdrawals is typically you have to have a 95% flow by past your intake. So you can only take 5% of the stream. Our previous permit was not set up that way. Our renewal is similar to what we had before. So we decided to stick with the same limits we had before rather than go into an entirely different realm of permitting with DEQ.
So what's the old flow by rate?
There is no
There's
flow
no
by
flow
rate.
by
Ah.
rate. There's just a daily, monthly.
There's no flow by
yearly
rate, which was part
maximum.
of the reason we withdrew our request.
Great. Play the system. Next, so the follow-up question is, a new municipal water reservoir was recommended by expert consultants, and there's various consultant reports that RSA is paid for and the county is paid for. Maybe this one's directed toward Brian. What's your opinion on getting 3 other county supervisors and the rest of our bucolic Orange County to agree to a construction bond to finance a new reservoir? We got 2 out of 5 now, so how are we gonna
Well,
get?
we could, so we actually have 3 members of the Board of Supervisors here, so we're not gonna discuss county business because that'd be an illegal meeting. But I'll address your question, but we're not gonna talk, as a board. It would be totally inappropriate to do that, and it would usurp the open meetings law. So it's very clear to me. So I'm going to ask Mr. Clemens to give some views on this, but as you all know, it's very clear to me that we need a reservoir and impoundment, maybe a couple of them, to take care of our long-term water needs. It was identified, I believe, back in 2006 and again in 2016. And here we are a long time later, and we have taken no steps, not a half a step, not an inch of a step. And we need to do something about that. Now, having said that, somebody's beeper is going off somewhere or something. So having said that, we know that that's a long process. So it takes, anywhere from 8 to 12 years, depending on how complicated the issue is. In addition, we also know that there are new rules that are coming out from the Commonwealth that are going to require planning on a regional level for water solutions and water sources. Those, it's my understanding, those rules have been sitting on the governor's desk for about 6 months, maybe a little longer, I'm not sure. So they can be handed down at any point. They are based on watersheds. So there's a science to this. And without getting deep into that, we are within county. So we're not in a region with Spotsylvania, which they picked a different region for them and a different watershed. So we have the Rapidan River watershed. So we need to plan and will need to plan with our neighbors, like Culpeper and Fauquier, and I believe it's Rappahannock, and Madison. So there is a need right now for us to sustain any sort of modicum of new homes or businesses to make sure we have a long-term alternate source of water. As you described, the 39 flow rate last year during the drought, it got down to 13. I believe it was 13 something. And we had water restrictions, which were subject to the permit at the time. We are in a more severe drought right now on the western part of Virginia, and not West Virginia, but the western part of Virginia. The Shenandoah Valley in that area is in a severe, extreme drought right now. We have parts of Orange County that are in severe, and the other part of Orange County that is in a moderate drought. We actually have no part that is drought-free in Orange County or in any of our regions. So these are very significant issues. It's going to take some work with Orange County, working with other counties. I personally have that high on my priority list, and I know we've talked about it as a new board. So we have a new board that got together and assumed office as a new board in January. So we've been going about this for about 7 months or so. We have very important discussions and planning. We've identified these kinds of important issues as things that we need to be involved in. I can tell you, I'm thrilled at the working relationships that we have. We talk to each other about meaningful things, and we look to have solutions. Now, we don't have all the solutions baked right now. We can't serve them up for dinner. I'd love to, but we've got a lot of work ahead of us. And that is one of the central issues that we have to address. And if we don't, we're all going to suffer, the entire county, our economic growth and development. So I'll stop there. I know Supervisor Hale may have something to say, and so will Tim. I'd like him to opine on a reservoir.
Thank you, Supervisor Nickel. I will just really reiterate what Supervisor Nickel just said. The need for a reservoir is no secret. And for me, it's not even really debatable. We need a reservoir. We need something to meet our long-term needs. The question is, how do we get there? And the answers to that currently are limited and not extremely appealing. So we need to continue to work the problem, think creatively, be a little open-minded, maybe a little more open-minded than some even want us to be, but we have to keep water in focus. And getting that reservoir is going to have a huge cost somewhere. My question is, how do we get it without leaving the cost as your burden? And that's a tough question to answer. And sometimes that requires some give and take, and some take of things that we may not want, but we may want that more than we want to bear the cost of that huge project. So I'm not sure where that leaves us, but it is certainly important. And it's certainly a part of our discussions and a focus point for us all. Like Mr. Clemens said, I can't offer you that answer in full, but I just want you to know that we are keeping it in focus.
The RSA board is aware of the long-term need. We've had discussions. It will be shared discussions between us and Orange County. As Mr. Nichols said, DEQ is pushing the regional concept very, very hard. So, they're going to want counties to look at it jointly even, so that, perhaps that cost that Supervisor Hale just mentioned is spread out more, rather than just for a one general location. I will say though, very quickly, on your 39 cubic feet per second, that is still somewhere over 25 or 30 million gallons going by that gauge. So I do, people look at that number, that 29 or even 24, 39, 24, 13, it's still a lot of water in the river. I don't want you to think otherwise. And we take between 1 million and 1.5 million a day out, but we put back 800,000 or 900,000 of that. So it goes through the system. I know nobody wants to hear this for the yuck factor, but it ends up back at the sewage plant, which is only, our discharge at our sewage plant is about 300 yards downstream of our intake for our water plant. So, fortunately it's on the other side, but we put back in most of it. So I did, it's not like the river's running dry. I don't want to scare anybody in that way, but we watch that gauge too. We have to.
The last question I have, maybe got a quick answer for. Given that state law prioritizes surface water for human consumption first, and by the way, recreational use is not even on the list. If the Rapidan River drops into the single digit range of cubic feet per second, do you anticipate needing to ask the state of Virginia to force Lake of the Woods to release water?
That would be a battle I would hate to undertake.
You don't want to answer it.
We've never gotten that far, to be honest with you. I know my predecessor had some discussions many, many, many years ago about that. But we've never reached a point where we actually would need to ask. I'm certainly sure that if it got to that point, we would be asking. But even in doing, keep in mind, you have a lot of water sitting here, but it's not piped to our water plant. So, I mean, there's more to it than just saying we have a water supply sitting here. We would still have to somehow transport it.
Well, you wouldn't want to process this water. This water would be downstream water. Because we have power boats here that use gasoline.
I understand that. But any water supply, we have to look at, how do we get it to our treatment plant? We've never reached a point on the river in my 24 years here where we could not draw in enough water under even the most severe, back in the drought of
2002.
2002. We still were able to pull in enough water to treat. Now, there were probably fewer people here then. But we were able to treat enough water to provide our customers every day. We never reached a point where we could not.
But
Yeah,
now the
and-
consumption rate is much higher.
That's true. So what you illustrate, Bill, is I don't want to get hysterical and think that someone's on our doorstep trying to take the water that's here now. And RSA is not,
Yeah.
and we have not had an emergency declaration or order from the governor. But if there were, okay, so we can't plan for, we have to plan for all contingencies. And what we know is if it gets worse than 2002, and about every weather-related issue is getting worse, they're not getting better. We're not having better, fewer droughts, we're having more droughts. We're not having fewer wildfires, we're having more. And so we have to plan for the future, and that future is an impoundment or a reservoir. So what that says is if we get to a more serious situation, we have to have an alternate source.
Yeah,
we have to have a
absolutely.
backup. And so that's why it's so important. And I think what General Manager Clemens said was it's going to behoove us to do that in a regional planning construct where we share the cost, where maybe there's some state grants or federal grants that we need to look at everything to minimize the cost to ratepayers. And that's on the RSA board. And we have 2 board members that are listening attentively here tonight. So that's on the RSA board, but it's also on Orange County to participate and be a part of those processes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And so I'm going to call Caesar up, and after that, Do we have any hands raised on Zoom right now? Okay, so there are no hands raised on Zoom. If you're on Zoom and you forgot to raise your hand or you don't know how, hit something that'll tell us what you want to hear, you want to say something, and we'll get to you. I think everybody knows how to raise their hand on Zoom by now. Though sometimes you can put a happy face up too. So Caesar.
Good evening, Lake of the Wood neighbors. My name's Cesar Collantes. Supervisor Nickel, thank you for convening this meeting this evening. Mr. Clemens, thank you, you and your staff, for accepting the invitation to this town hall. It's been established that we have an antiquated system. It's also been established that through the decades, we've been doing a piecemeal bandage system on a system that is antiquated and will soon need to be replaced. Replacement day is coming. We all know that. We don't know when. Given that, and you mentioned we've been paying a $7 charge, but I'm assuming that's just for the current Band-Aids. Is RSA conducting, or does RSA have plans to conduct a capital campaign to be ready for the time when this infrastructure needs to be switched out or replaced or upgraded to assist the Lake of the Woods payers with that payment? And that's the first part. The second part, if so, is there an asset manager or an asset management plan for that capital campaign? Would it be an external asset manager or an internal asset manager to RSA?
First question. We have had a capital improvement program for the last number of years. As part of that, we've also done water line work. We've replaced 3,700 or 3,800 feet of water line inside of Lake of the Woods. We've either upgraded it or extended it or looped it to make the system better. We have an ongoing capital list. We're in the process right now of updating it. The RSA board has been advised we'll be taking that updated list back to them in the near future to let them go through it and to help us prioritize what we see as most important to get done. From that, we currently have a rate study going, and part of that rate study will look at how to fund not only our annual O&M cost, but that capital program too. You know, how are we going to fund that moving forward? We have replaced a lot of stuff inside of Lake of the Woods. All the pump stations, Joe, tell me how many, 5 or 6 of them were completely redone just a few years ago.
You mean for the lift stations?
Yeah, for the lift station.
And some of those repairs, they're permanent. They could last forever.
Yeah.
The way we've upgraded it, they could be there forever. It's very
As long as you
expensive,
stay with
but-
this vacuum pump system,
Well, I
but if
mean,
you switch.
Yeah, or
you
you
gotta
could,
switch
you
that
could even
too.
reutilize it if you did go to a conventional. You know, there's
Okay.
some areas that would accept a conventional gravity sewer system.
And
So-
we actually have, where we could, and there's not been many places, but inside of Lake of the Woods, there's been a few places we've been able to switch over from vacuum to gravity. And we've done that. We've
Okay.
had to put in new lines and a few different things to make it work because it's just less maintenance for us and it's less headache. As far as asset management, we started an asset management for years. We've had a list of everything we have written on paper. We're in the process now for the first time of putting it all in electronic form. We have people going out that are GPSing all of our different pipes, pump stations, meters, valves, hydrants, trying to get all of that put into this system. We do not have that complete yet. That will take us a while. And from that, that's also something we will use with our board to discuss, okay, this particular area, you know, these hydrants are 40 years old or 50 years old. We need to replace those. We have replaced almost every water meter inside of Lake of the Woods in the last 5 or 6 years. And we've spent close to $1 million doing that so that all of your meters are new. We have the ability on all those new meters, if you have a problem, we can go back 90 days in its history. We can look at what happened. We can see if there's a spike in use. We try to tell, our staff, we've told our staff, never tell a customer they have a leak because we don't know if someone has a leak. All we know is water's going through a meter. Now with these newer meters, we have the ability to go back and see when that water went through and at what rate it went through. So I mean, we're constantly doing those kind of things, trying to upgrade and to make it better. A program we haven't gotten in place yet, we would like to, would allow you as the customer to be able to go on and look at your own meter use electronically. We've not reached that point yet, but we're still working on it. So you would be able to see, you know, what's going on at your home specifically. So when you said antiquated, yes, a lot of it is old. But I would say throughout the United States, water and sewer infrastructure is old. This is the 5th utility I've worked at in my career. None of them have been new. They've all been pretty old. And our job is to go through and rebuild pump stations, reline pipe, replace pipe, whatever we can, take that old stuff out, put new in, and to keep it going. Because the cost of replacing it back to square one is exorbitant.
You mentioned in detail your capital improvement program. Do you see that to be the same as a capital campaign for future investment?
Sure, if I'm following what you mean by capital campaign.
Well, capital improvement, you're telling us about things that you're doing today.
This is what we're looking at in the future. These are projects that we're putting dates on.
Okay.
We think need to be done in the next 3 years, 5 years,
Okay.
10 years, 20 years.
And so you're knowing the plan, but what about a plan for getting the money to pay for it? Is it just us? Or with that $7 that you're getting, is that being invested anywhere on our behalf? You mentioned you need to get an asset manager. My assumption is that's being provided to the county. Your plans to get an asset manager, would that be provided that
No,
information?
we're totally separate from the county.
Yes, but if the county board of supervisor were to request that information, would you provide that to them on our behalf?
We would provide them what information we have.
Okay.
Okay, we may not have what Supervisor Nickel asked me recently, do you have an asset management plan and can I get a copy of it? And I had to respond and say, we're still working on that. We're still investigating that. We really don't have it put in place yet. You know, we know what we have in the ground. We know the age of most of it, but to be able to provide it in a format that everyone can look at it and go, oh, this is 30 years old or 50 years old, or we don't have it in that format yet. That's what we're working on now. From that, again, that's what's going to help us in the future to be able to know what we need to replace when and what kind of rate structure is going to be necessary to take care of that.
Okay. Thank you for being here tonight.
Again, I'm not sure if I answered your question. I'd be welcome to discuss.
I think you did the best that you could and it's appreciated.
I'll give
Thanks,
you
sir.
my number. We can talk about it later. So
Yeah, thank you, Caesar. I did ask a similar question maybe a couple of weeks ago. And so my concern was we have a lot of infrastructure in the ground. We know the pump stations, all of this, right? There's been a process to replace some, as I think General Manager Clemens has noted. But what I want to see, and I think what we need to see is what is the plan for that over time? What needs to be replaced next month? What doesn't need to be replaced in 5 years, and how is that laid out? And then how does that tie to a capital improvement program? So the question I would have to follow on to that, and I know you said you needed to get a little bit of work done to get that information to me, and I'll share that with you all once I have it. But I want to understand this capital improvement program that you're talking about. That's a new program, right? That's a new look out to say we need to invest these capital resources to meet the growing needs that exist in the system. And that work is being done in an engineering study right now. Is that right?
that's
Is that, so the only engineering study is the pump station?
study that's underway here is for the 13 pump stations.
Okay, and so tell us what you're doing on the capital improvement program and when those figures will be in.
Those are generated by staff, and then in conjunction with meetings with the board, we have developed that capital improvement program and plan.
That's the RSA.
That is the RSA board, yes, because that's who we work for. So it's not a new program in the fact that it's been in existence for a number of years now. But a lot of the stuff that was on it originally has been completed or done or moved out in time for one reason or another. And so we're in the process of updating that right now to take back to our board in the next couple of months, month or two, to begin having discussions about these are the things we as staff are seeing. This particular line is 40 years old and it's, you know, a certain kind of pipe material. We think it probably needs to be replaced soon. I'm sure we'll have to look at, well, how many breaks have we had on it? How many leaks have we had on it? Just because it's 40 years old doesn't necessarily mean it has to be replaced yet. We have worked with pipe that's 80 and 90 years old. So there's a lot of old pipe in the ground in the Commonwealth of Virginia, really old pipe. Some of it's well over 100 years old and still functioning today. So from that, we look at, you know, how many problems have we had with a section of line or a pump station or whatever. And then we will sit and talk with our board in meetings about this is what we think we need to do, and these are the estimated costs to do it. And from there, we have to work up how we pay for that.
When will that be published?
It's never been, when you say published,
When will it be available for us to understand what you determined?
probably the latter part of this year, by the time we finish that.
When will the rate study be completed?
I think the draft rate study is due back in draft form, I believe in August. I'd have to check on that. They're supposed to provide us a draft. Eventually, they will be making a presentation to the RSA board about their recommendations. That'll be the latter part of this year also.
Okay. Thank you, RSA, for being here and the Board of Orange County Board of Supervisor members that are here. I was going to discuss water. The gentleman came up, the two gentlemen before came up with some really great ideas, some real factual things. But I do have some additional questions or comments I'd like to make on that and with a final question. First of all, Stafford County put in Lake Mooney, and that took them 12 to 15 years to get the lands, and that is a additional reservoir for them. Right now, Caroline County has been going through the process with DEQ to take enough water out of the Rappahannock River so that they can do enough for their growth in Caroline. And any of you who've been following that know that one of the problems is they want to take the water out of the Rappahannock and discharge it back into Mattaponi, and there's going through some issues with DEQ on that. However, it does look like they're going to be able to do it. But they've been working on that off and on for 20 to 25 years. So we're not talking about a quick fix for a reservoir or any water containment. So my question is, the Lake Wilderness Project or the Wilderness Project rather, and several other subdivisions have been going up. And the question then becomes, what kind of surplus water supply do we have, if any? And if we do have surplus water available to us, how do you use that for future growth? And do you work closely with the zoning and the Board of Orange County Board of Supervisors so that when they approve a project, we know that we can provide the human need of good water?
Well, we hope we work closely with them since 3 of my board members are also either Board of Supervisors or County Administrator. So, you know, we think we have a good line of communication with the county. With respect to your question about, say, I think you mentioned a project, Wilderness, you talk about Wilderness Crossing or, you know, we are prepared for that if and when it happens. They projected, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 homes over a 30 or 40-year period. That's the equivalent of roughly 100,000 gallons of water use a day. They'll have some other things too when that actually happens, but we have adequate supply for that. The the problem we have, and you've all been talking about it here, is we're what's known as a run-of-the-river plant. We don't have storage sitting available. So, the idea of long-term raw water storage is something that needs to be evaluated, pursued, and that sort of thing. Whether it's for future growth or even for the folks that are just here today. Again, that's going to have to be a discussion between the RSA board, Orange County, perhaps neighboring counties, to do it in a regional fashion. And hopefully a decision can be made in a not too distant future so that can start. Like I say, I've been in this business 46 years. I know I won't still be here by the time an impoundment gets built. It
None
takes
of
a
us
little
will.
while and I will not be here at that point. So these young men may, but I won't be. But I would at least like to have it going before that.
Thank you.
If I might also just add that with any future development and growth, that the burden and the weight of the extra expense for, say, a reservoir, in my opinion, should be shared very heavily with the developers and those moving into the development. So, and I mentioned this when I was campaigning. So if Wilderness Crossing were to become a reality, the numbers are such that advancement fees could potentially help pay for that reservoir. And that's a very real and possible solution if Wilderness Crossing does come to pass. So just know that my position is we share that weight and the cost with incoming developments.
And I just, so I made quite a bit of noise about these issues last year, and I continue to do that, as Mr. Clemens knows. To him personally, I go to every RSA board meeting and ask questions. I think we need an asset management plan. I think that's critical, especially for Lake of the Woods and a system that's old as ours. We're gonna have to work on that. It was noted last year that the permit to increase the take from the Rapidan would solve all of the problems. So that was denied, or however you want to call it. It was withdrawn, and it was you withdrew it, and we don't have additional water coming out. Is $1 million, right? And you were asking for 4 million, so you're asking for an additional $1 million. So I think which then points to, and I think this is true, correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to make sure everybody has this information, but in 06 and in 16, there were studies that said we needed an impoundment. We needed additional water, alternate sources. And are you aware of those?
Not sure the exact date, but yes.
Okay. Okay, so there are several, so I may be wrong on the dates, but I'm pretty sure it's 06 or 04 and 16. So we've lost, in some cases, 8 years, and in others, almost 20 years, working on a reservoir, which is why this is so important, which is why this question comes up. And so I look forward to continuing to work on the board and with you to address that both regionally, but also importantly for the entire county and the benefit of our entire county, so that we can have appropriate development that is reasonable, complementary, and harmonious. And by the way, you just can't build all this and not have an upgraded water treatment plant. You've got to do, and sewage treatment plants. You've got to do, and we don't have land at the current available land to expand it. So that's part of the heliocentric acid, is that right? Where we need to do some different treatment of the water in a way that could help the issues that we're having with the higher levels. Am I stating that correctly?
Yes, yes, you are. No, you are. David, do you want to talk about HAs? You want me to?
We need to, I want everybody to understand.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. One of the things that we've told our board, and I'll let David talk about this in a minute because he's more knowledgeable than I am, is that our existing water plant was built in the mid-90s. It was never intended to deal with this issue. Halioacetic acids, disinfection byproducts, nobody even heard of them. Nobody cared. They've been around, I guess, since as long as chlorine's been added to water, but we didn't begin testing for it until the mid-2000s. That's when all of a sudden EPA, somebody said, well, let's have these guys test for something new. This happens to us all the time. They keep hitting us with new stuff. And, you know, some of these plants were not designed to handle it. So the biggest part of disinfection byproducts, halioacetic acid specifically, because that's what we've dinged ourselves on, is organics that come in contact with disinfection, which is we chlorinate. We chlorinate. Most places chlorinate. Some do chloramines, which is a combination of ammonia and chlorine, but that has other issues that go with it. We've elected to just chlorinate. We have to do something where we have to disinfect, but we draw off the Rapidan River, so we have to deal with whatever is naturally occurring in the river at that given moment. So, you know, whatever the amount of organics are in the river, when we draw, that's what we're treating. David can speak to this, but yes, there would be things we could do we would need more land. Different processes we could install. We cannot put them on the existing site. They won't fit. Do you want to speak to that briefly?
Sure. Like Tim mentioned, we're really at the mercy of the river. The past couple of years being so dry, the organics content is higher than the river. The simplest way to explain how the halioacetic acids are created, you've got organics combined with chlorine. Can't compromise on the chlorine. That's what keeps everybody's water safe. The organics, there are some steps we can take to enhance removal at the plant, but we're really limited by the technology that we have that was put in the 90s. So thinking ahead to future treatment plants, which we've already done, that's, you know, in the future on the horizon, there are treatment systems that would absolutely take care of the organics issue and some other emerging contaminants that aren't even regulated yet. The biggest constraint we have now is space on the treatment plant site. We just did an upgrade mainly to increase capacity at the plant to provide a little bit more headroom. But there's simply no space to add the kind of treatment systems that we would need at the existing plant. There's a possibility of doing a little bit more engineering magic to figure out how we can squeeze some things in there. But it will ultimately require land acquisition and at least some new treatment components and new infrastructure. And you never want to rush into a major infrastructure project. So we're trying to be very careful about the planning process to make sure what we actually do build is what we need. And then it's going to serve us for a long time.
We'll do what we need it to do.
Right.
And just double checking on Zoom. Do we have any hands raised? Okay. Next question.
Hey, my name is Jerry Johnson. I don't really have a question. The HOA board and the Board of Supervisors and RSA and probably some people in this room may already know this, but USDA Rural Development, who I just retired from about a year ago, they provide loans and grants for USDA Rural Development, who I retired from about a year ago, provides loans and grants for critical infrastructure for water and sewer systems. And so looking far into, maybe not that far in the future, but for people concerned about the increase in assessments to accommodate improvements in the systems here within Lake of the Woods. Lake of the Woods I haven't been on the website there with USDA Rural Development forever, but I mean, they have a list of grants and loans that are available for critical infrastructure, water and sewer system. So that is available. I mean, you know, that is available. So just to keep that in mind if down the road, Lake of the Woods needs to do something major.
Thank you. We have had discussions with them.
Okay,
Yes,
you're
yeah,
aware of that,
we,
okay.
we are in contact
Right,
with them
good.
already.
Good,
Yes.
okay, so that was my comment. And then I just want to leave you with rural development also provides broadband funding, and they provided funding to FiberLink. So that's why that has been able to be put into the system. So just touting the government, you guys. So.
Hi, my name is Joe Luntine. So I've had a house here on the lake for 25 years. I have repeated overflows in my system. I currently have 2 of your guys coming twice a day to check my system. I must say, every time that I've called you guys on the phone, you've been very responsive. Somebody comes very quickly, weekends, holidays. So I appreciate that very much. The fact that we have 13 pump stations for 4,000 homes seems to me to be quite a stretch. Over these 25 years, what I've always been told is I'm at the end of the line. So it doesn't matter how much activity I have. It could be that the guy's halfway up the line or third of the line is doing a lot of activity, and I'm just the recipient of the overflow. So my question is there another solution short of a new pump station, an additional pump station, to be kind of a maybe halfway down or a third of the way down to enhance the vacuum power so that those folks at the end of the line don't suffer so much?
I can't even give you a good answer to that right now. I would need to talk with you in more detail, get some information from Joe as to where you're at. We'd have to look at the hydraulics of the system and, what can be done, what could be done, what land's available. Because, a pump station is going to take land somewhere. And land inside of Lake of the Woods is precious, I know. So.
But what I'm asking is there some alternate solution short of a big pump station? It would be like, in your house, you have a repeater for your internet. Is there like a repeater for the vacuum system?
Okay. We have booster pumps on water systems. There's not such a thing as a booster for a vacuum system. That's the critical thing with vacuum is, it is just that it's vacuum. It's running at negative pressure. So any little pinprick, any crack, anything is a problem. Joe, I'm not specifically, where do you live, sir?
100 Manassas Point.
You probably already knew that.
One thing I will say, what we're currently doing is piloting a monitoring system that would monitor vacuum pressure out in the actual vacuum system and not just at the pump stations. The idea being we would get a little bit more notice that there's a problem on your line, particularly at the end of a line.
Right.
In a problem area like yours, and be able to respond before you have an overflow. But I guess maybe, Joe, do you want to give kind of an overview of just the basics of how the vacuum system works, where we might have trouble areas, or what we do typically long-term, short-term to deal with problem areas in a vacuum system?
So with the vacuum system, you mentioned you're at the end of the line. I'm very familiar with your address, have been for a long time. So your issue currently was due to a vacuum leak. Okay, so the way to describe a vacuum system is, say you're vacuuming your stairs and you get a hole up here, a giant hole. Now you have no vacuum here, but you got all the vacuum in the world back this way. So if we can't establish where that hole is before your tank fills up, it's going to spill onto the ground. And that is the way it was designed to work. When it fails, it goes on the ground, not in the house, ideally. Which is gross because, especially in your instance, you're on the lakefront, a very limited amount of time before it makes its way into the lake. But adding more vacuum systems would help. But then the cost of operation would, double, triple, depending on how many stations you put in.
It is something we will look into because I don't want you to have a continued problem. So we'll take a look at that, and we'll even talk to the engineers that are doing this study for us now to see if there's something that could be done, midway. I don't know. But we will look into it and one of us will communicate with you. I will say, and I'm not in your case necessarily, but if you have a problem with your vacuum tank at your house, if it's backed up, if it's spilling on the ground, the first thing we ask people is, please quit using water until we get there. The more you flush, the longer your washing machine runs or your dishwasher, you're just putting more and more water into a problem. If you can at least limit what you're getting rid of at that moment until we get there, oftentimes it won't make it to the lake or it won't become as big a problem. A lot of people will call us and we get there and the washing machine's still running in the house or the dishwasher's running and, our guys are out there trying to work on it and the water's just pouring in there so if you you have a problem at your tank and can limit the use until we can get there, we would appreciate that. But
I'd like to add on to that a little bit. Even if you just hear something different, just
Yeah.
call us. We'll send a tech out. You smell something that's not normal, hear something, you hear a gurgle, just slightest thing, just give us a call. Costs nothing for us to come out and check it out. A lot of times we can get ahead of a problem before it actually does spill on the ground. That's happened tons of times,
and always call us before you call the plumber.
every time.
Because I'm serious. We're not charging you to come out there. We're not charging you $120 just to drive out and look. Okay, that you already pay for that. So we're going to come when you call. That plumber's going to charge you just to show up. So call us first. We may tell you you need to call a plumber because it's on your side but if you call him first, he's going to charge you and then you're going to look at us and go, I want my money back. And we're going to go, you should have called us first. So.
All right, next.
Well, I'm in the same boat as Joe, so I'm at the end of the line with constant overflow. I'll let you guess my address down there.
I don't recognize you.
Ask Tim, he does. Not you, Tim, my technician, Tim.
Okay, I was
So
gonna
we're on
say, I
first name
don't.
basis. It's really sad.
Yeah.
But so my question is do you guys have an internal process where you're actually monitoring these service calls and the repairs that are being done
Mhm.
to see
Mhm.
how often the next calls are being placed? Because right now I'm about on 30 service calls in under 3 years for overflow in my yard. It's constant. I'm having technicians out there all the time, weekends, holidays. They actually were nice enough to come by right before the 4th of July holiday, just on their own to say, I'm looking at your tank to make sure that your yard is not going to be a sewage swimming pool. So I just didn't know if you guys actually monitored that, looked at the repairs and how long they're truly lasting. I've noticed a lot of the parts that are being put in are older, probably taken out of somewhere else and repaired, put back in there. Well, they are. In my instance, they are. So I just wanted to know how that's monitored.
We do keep track of every call, every response, what went on. We have a record of it. We do report every overflow to DEQ every month. So
Even in a personal yard?
yes, yeah, we do report them every month. Now, if they go into the lake, we have to report them within 24 hours. If they go on the yard, we still report them to the state every month.
Does
So
the
it's
homeowner have access to the reports to the DEQ?
on DEQ's website? Probably so.
Okay. And should we be reporting our own as well to make sure that they're
To-
done to the DEQ?
It's up to you. If you do, they're just gonna call us, but yeah. Where do you live? What's your address? I'm not Tim, your technician, but I am
Do it,
Tim, your
do it.
general manager.
112 Woodlawn.
You have to
Got
admit,
it, buddy.
he's good,
I
okay?
actually know the customer service rep who answers the phone during the day by name as well. So Rachel now calls.
Rachel's very good.
Yes, she is. I don't even tell her my name anymore. I just tell her to come out to the SHIT house and she calls.
But we really don't want you to be the SHIT house, so we'll take a look at that. We do have some that are, they are the end of the line and they do have more problems than others. We're aware of that.
And we have the new line, but it never really got better. So,
Okay.
but I just wanted to make sure that it was monitored as well.
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Vicky Torello. I just have one question about the business operations within RSA. When you mentioned that we have a $7 fee that's part of our assessment, that's been constant for how long?
That went on that started being charged in 2009.
So 2009. My question for that is, knowing that everything in this world is, is growing in expense, why wouldn't we incrementally increase that amount, knowing that we are going to have expenses that are going to continue? I'm just questioning
I
that.
think it's a wonderful question and I'm all for increasing it.
And I know no one here likes that. I know that.
Well,
However,
but
if it's
in truth-
incremental over
in
time,
truth, my predecessor, his way of running this organization was to run it as inexpensively as possible. He did like to try to keep the rates down as much as he could. He tried not to raise rates. And so if he could get by, we got by. I personally think, and this will probably anger some of you, I think that fee that we charged $7.09 should be over $10 today, because extrapolating forward, that's where it would be. And I personally think there should be, and I've got board members I hope don't get upset, but I think there should be an annual increase on it just to keep us, if we're going to
to keep
continue to
ahead of the
improve this
inflation that we
system.
are all experiencing.
Right, the $350,000 we started spending in 2009 is not worth $350,000
It's
today.
not. So I think just the economics of that, looking at it, we can all say we don't want to pay that for gas, but we can be told, don't drive your car anymore, but we can't be told, don't flush your toilets anymore. So
Makes it
I,
harder.
it makes it a little harder.
Makes it harder.
So I'm just saying, looking at that, I would hope that the board, your board, would seriously consider that, looking at a long-term.
And again, we
increase.
do have a rate study that is going, and that
Right.
is one of the things that will be looked at and will come back to our board. Our board is waiting on that study.
Thank you.
Yes.
And one of the reasons, Vicky, and I appreciate you asking that I asked about an asset management plan is I think any increase in the rates needs to be tied to either an asset management plan and an upgrade in the system, or upgrades in specific areas of the system, replacing old parts, but also in the capital program. So I don't want just, it was $7 back then, we're just going to keep spending it. I want to know what we're spending it on. And I want to know that it's being invested in those critical things. And I'm not saying that hasn't happened. No, because, and I've talked, that's right. And I've talked to Tim about that. And that's why it's important to lay that out so that we know what we're going to improve and how. And I think this pump station study is going to be an important one to understand what we need to do. I know you've put gravity in some places, you replace vacuum lines. And those are all important, but we have to invest those dollars right back in the system so we have fewer leaks and have fewer problems. So, Bob?
I want to say.
Yeah. That's okay.
When RSA took over the system, the amount of sewer leaks ran 50 to 60 a day. A day. There were much fewer homes in here in the late 80s, and they still ran 50 to 60 overflows a day. We average less than one a day now. I will tell you that. We average less than one, and we report that to the state every month. Now, that's not to say we don't have 3 in one day, because we can. But we average, and we do report it, we average less than one per day. So there's been a lot of work done. I don't want people to think there's not, because there has been. There's a lot fewer overflows today than there were back in the late 80s.
Bob Ho, I want to thank you all for coming tonight. It's really been helpful for all of us. And I want to thank Vicky for introducing my question. Would you walk us through the step-by-step process to make that $7 a month, $10 or $12 or $20 a month? What are the steps that you have to take and that the board has to take to change our bill till it changes?
Anytime we do a rate increase, there have to be public hearings. And so before any rate increase can happen, there will have to be public hearings conducted so that all of you have an opportunity to hear what it's being raised to, why it's being raised, to ask questions. But that has to be done as part of the process. We can't just arbitrarily regulate. It's against the law. So before it ever happens, there will be public notices out in the newspapers. It'll go out through, your email blast or however they do things in here. They do things differently. You would hear about it, and then our board would have to conduct a hearing.
Okay, so they conduct the hearing, then what happened?
If they decide to adopt a rate, then a date is set in which that new rate would go into effect.
Okay,
The last time we did a rate increase down here, we did, the last one was 3 or 4 years ago. And I came into this job in 17. I think we did a rate increase in 17 here and a rate increase in 20. We've not done one since. The other systems we were serving were no longer in Greene County, but we were at the time in Madison County. We did annual increases for 5 years. I personally, again, this is just me, I would rather do an annual increase at a smaller increment every year than to wait 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, and I'll hit you with 50%. RSA's been guilty of that in the past, and we will not be guilty of that in the future. Because our board is way more proactive than that. But that is how it works.
thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, okay.
I was really hoping somebody else would ask this question, but the brown water, the laundry not being clean when I wash it, the bathtubs that my kids take baths in, is my only option a water filtration system?
No. No. We are working on that. The thing we have to do when you get brown water, and it'll happen anytime water reverses direction. And generally water in here is running in one direction, but when it reverses direction, and that could be because of a fire, somebody opens a hydrant, they pull hard, changes the direction of the water. All of a sudden, some of that old iron and manganese that's sitting on those pipe walls comes loose. And unfortunately, it shows up in your homes. And I believe it because when I first came to work here years ago, 20 years ago, 24 years ago, a lady out here called and I went to her home and her water looked like iced tea. So, I mean, I've seen it. Now, we flush more today than we ever have. We are working on doing some unidirectional flushing to try to clean it out. And we will continue to flush. That's about all we can do in here is flush. I've worked in systems before and we can't do it in here because it's distributional. I've worked in systems where we did what they call pipe pigging, which is a very abrasive tool that goes inside of a pipe, runs by water, cleans, but it cleans the pipe out. It's usually done on transmission lines, not distribution lines. If we were to do that in here, you'd have it in every home here because everything that comes off those pipe walls in that cleaning process is going to be in your house. And nobody here wants that. So the only thing we can do and will continue to do is flush. We do want to flush more aggressively. Joe has recently we bought a couple of devices we're trying. They are automatic flushing devices. We're putting them in areas where we've had problems so that rather than letting it build up, they flush on a timer. They come on and they flush a certain amount every day or so much an hour. And we're trying those for the first time. And if they work, and I think they will, we'll be putting them in more places, particularly in dead end areas or loop areas that don't actually loop. We have some water lines in here that they go in the neighborhood one direction, they come back around, but they go back out in the same pipe. So it's not an actual loop in that it's different water changing. So I would not want you to have to buy a filtration system. I hate for you to have to do that. We would rather come and flush. Do you have a problem often? Okay.
I'm on Clover Hill Court. I got tired of calling because the answer was always run your water. and I feel like that's wasting water.
Well, what they're gonna tell you then, we tell people when they call and they say it's in the house, the only way you're gonna get it out of the house is to run the water. It's not gonna go out any other way. So we tell you to run it until it runs clear, and then we credit your bill for that. We give you a credit. We will not charge you, for water that we know is just not being used. So, if you're flushing and you call us and say, my water's dirty, Rachel's gonna say, flush, run your water taps until they run clean, and we'll credit your bill. That's all we can do at that point, because then it's already in your home. If you do call us, we'll generally try to send a technician out and go to the nearest hydrant and open it and see if we can flush out from there. But yeah, that's about all we can do with this system at this point.
Okay. And if we have the brown water, then does that mean it's not safe to drink?
It's organic. It's iron and manganese. That does occur naturally in the river water. These wells, when they use them, back in the 70s and early 80s, they were evidently extremely bad with it. To the point that at least from stuff I've read, there were times back in that era where there would be no water. I mean, they got so plugged up with stuff, there was no water. And they go out and they'd clean everything and put it back together, and then there'd be water again. But it's not harmful, but it doesn't look nice. I do know that. It is a naturally occurring organic. The only thing we can tell you to do is to flush it.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for coming out and talking to us tonight. I'm a resident and I'm also a realtor. There's been talk about where your home is on the line. Is there a way for us to see where a particular home is on a line? So if I have potential clients and they're looking at a home, that would be something I would want to know if they might have potential water problems.
Joe?
So is there a map or anything like that that tells you?
Well, we have maps that show where our lines are.
Okay.
Joe's gonna be probably the quickest resource here.
Okay.
And I'm saying that seriously.
Mhm.
They could tell you, we have a water line here, we have a sewer line here. You're gonna be on this part of, the vacuum system. You're gonna be up near a pump station, or you're gonna be the furthest one from it.
Mhm.
Joe knows more about this system than any of us.
Okay, I'll get his card maybe at the end here.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, anytime.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have any on Zoom? All right. Well, hold on, I'm sorry. Oh. Bill's gonna give us one more question, so.
It seems
All
like
right.
everybody was concentrating on sewage. My issue was raw water, but sewage. Why haven't we discussed pressurized water, pressurized sewer system? Most lakes that have to transition from septic systems to sewer systems have to always go with electric grinder pump pressurized sewer system. Why aren't you talking about that?
That's not what was chosen here back in the late 60s. We've talked about replacing it with something like that and what the cost would be.
No, you're talking about gravity system.
Well,
We're talking about pressurized sewer.
you're talking about pure pressurized with nothing but force mains and grinder pumps?
The way the pressurized sewer system works is each individual house has a grinder, a tank and a grinder pump.
Right.
And then when that level reaches the level, the grinder pump turns on, the homeowner supplies the electricity.
They do.
That shoots their sewage into a 2-inch pipe that is not dependent on gravity. And then
No, that's all force main.
the RSA or your company would be flushing that pipe with water continuously.
So instead of having vacuum tanks in every yard, every house is going to have a grinder pump station.
Yes, with alarms on it and to
But,
notify.
but with
your-
the opportunity to overflow, because we've
Yeah.
managed them before. And they're, every grinder pump station that goes in today probably costs between 12 and 15,000 per pump station.
Mhm.
And you'd have to replace, again, all the lines in here. All those things are possible. It's just a matter of who pays for it.
They hardly ever do gravity systems around lakes. The topography just doesn't work.
Well, I've lived in areas where they do, but again, different parts of the country.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I think we're running out of airspeed and altitude, as the pilot says. So we're coming in for a landing here on this town hall. Okay, so one final comment. Joe, can you tell people what you should put down your toilet and what you should not, most importantly, put down your toilet?
Well,
I think we know the two main things. If you could cover the things we don't want to put down there.
it's easier to answer it this way, the three Ps. Pee, poop, and paper. That should be the only thing going down there. That's it, period. Flushable wipes are the worst. Flushable wipes and feminine products are the biggest problem we have, along with grease that you pour out of your pants.
Yeah. Grease, paint, none of that.
Kind of just dissipates. You see it sometimes in tanks, but it kind of mixes in with water and goes on down. They do. Yep.
Thank you for that, Len. So I'm not going to say it because Joe did, and I want somebody to say Brian's up there saying the three Ps, but I don't want to say them out loud, but it's the three Ps, and you heard what he said. That's it in your toilet. I want to so the question was, just so people on Zoom or others can hear it, the question is, the water was talked about as being brown, but it also smells. Is that normal?
She said it's at the organics, and it is the organics. It's old organics coming off in the pipe. Yes, that is the odor. It's not nice. We'd rather not ever have it. Joe and one of his guys were out all day Sunday, most of Sunday flushing. We had it all over the lake for some reason, and we're not sure why. Well, there was a fire earlier in the week, we know, and that may have been the culprit, was the fire earlier in the week. Oh, no, I understand that. I do. And please, when it happens, call us. We want you to, because we want to send somebody out to flush. We want to try to figure out why. Yes, ma'am.
So we'll close out. So I want to thank Lake of the Woods for hosting us here and setting this all up. I certainly want to thank my fellow supervisor, Crystal Hale, for being here. I want to thank both Mark Johnson, RSA board member Ted Voorhees, for being here. I want to thank Tim for you and your staff to be here. And Joe, I think you've earned a lot of goodwill to understand that you know our system, you know where the problem areas are, and we have to call you. I think that's one of the big issues that has come out. It's the classic, if you see something, say something. If you see, and I do it all the time, somebody sent something to me and said, I called RSA right away on the weekend, and they got out and took a look at it. If you see something coming out of the pipe, please call them. They will investigate it. We have technicians. You pay for that in your rates. And that's really, really important. And then finally, I would just want to thank all of you for being here, for taking an interest, learning more. I learned some new things here tonight. I want to learn some more, and I want some more things to happen so that we can have a better community, a better system. But I appreciate the responsiveness to hold this meeting as we get capital plans. Maybe in this pump station engineering report, maybe we'll do another one of these later on in the year so we can learn more and be smart about it. So thank you all for coming, and to all those on Zoom, thank you for zooming in. Really appreciate your interest in making this better. Crystal.
Sorry, and I just want to reiterate thanks to Brian Nickel for pulling this together, for y'all being here, to Mr. Clemens and his staff. Thank y'all. Have a good night.